Go away! Can you get Thomas, please?
You're just not on my good side,
Oh my God.
Hey, you know I can't even pull it up. He Really? Where did you get that? Did you watch it last night?
Go away!
Please. Quiet, okay?
Seriously gonna fight you.
Yesterday we talked about the classical forms of justice, okay, that have been reached by Thomas. The classical forms of justice were really attained by people reflecting, using their reason over the years. Okay? Philosophers thinking about what justice was and how justice is applied in different forms. Okay? The classical forms are, the first is what we call commutative justice. Okay? And it deals with our relations with other people. And it makes sense, we have to have some type of justice. If we're dealing with others, we enter into contracts with them, we take jobs, we expect to be paid. An employer has the obligation to pay a worker, things like this. Okay? That's commutative justice. Then there is something called legal justice, which regulates how we as individuals respond to living in a society, in the state. And when we talk about legal justice, we're talking about the common good of society. Everyone's expected to use our, well, for one, obey the laws of society, okay? And then to use our gifts, our talents, our resources for the good of the community, for the service of others. We do this in local societies, in the family this is done, in the school, in the parish, in the larger community. We're all expected to pitch in and help. That concerns legal justice. And then the third form was distributive justice. And that concerns how authority, for example, in the state, distributes the goods of social life among the members of society. And different members are of society, based upon their abilities, may be awarded different rewards, may be paid differently. We're not all equal. Okay? To desire complete equality with everyone is not realistic because we're not all equal in our abilities and talents. Some people are better naturally at things. Some people are better at sports. Some people, by their own drive and industriousness, are better achievers. Okay? They deserve more. And distributive justice entails also the idea of the government, helping out people that are in real need. Some people just can't make it themselves, and that's why we have taxes. People are taxed, and money is given to those who are really in poverty, because we want to assist them if they can't help themselves, if they can't attain any basic level of living. We want to assist them. Okay? But we can't want complete equality or desire complete equality because that's unrealistic. That's really a dream state that's not, well, it's not going to be attained even in heaven. Okay? And why? Because God is just. He's going to reward us for our efforts. Okay? We attain more holiness, well, you're going to be awarded a greater glory in heaven. saints have the most happiness in heaven because they've made their heaven here on earth. That's what we do. By the way we live our lives, we make our heaven. Okay? We're going to be happier for eternity if we live holier lives here on earth, if we give ourselves to others, spend ourselves for others, serve God and neighbor. Okay? Now, today I want to return to a topic of rights because it needs to be explored a little more. We talked about natural rights that are recognized, for example, by our Declaration of Independence. What does our Declaration of Independence say? Does anyone remember what the Declaration says?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Well, those are rights that are mentioned, that's right. But
Unalienable.
they're unalienable rights, okay? You guys, stop.
Wait. I wasn't even looking at him.
I can see you guys, okay? So, you're right in front of you, okay? Focus your attention on me, okay, Thomas?
I was
Okay.
trying to get his attention about.
You're right, Emma, about those rights. Those are enumerated rights that are natural, they're unalienable rights. But the point is, where do they come from? What does the Declaration of Independence say about where those rights come from? Where do they originate, Becky? Where do they originate? Our rights to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. From whence do they come? Remember what Thomas Jefferson said? We are endowed by whom? By our Creator. Okay? We're endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Okay? And even though we recognize that, okay, our founders had this notion, okay, of natural rights for everyone that we're endowed with, they fell short because while it's true that our rights don't come from the government, from a king or a parliament or a president, okay, that they come from God, the fact that we have these fundamental rights is not really evident to everyone at all times. Even our founders, it was not evident to. And does anyone know what I'm referring to? There was a class of people that were not recognized. Do you know who, Seth?
Some of the writers of the Declaration of Independence had slaves.
Ah, that's right. Okay. Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, owned slaves. So while they said that, oh, we're all endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights to life, to liberty, to the pursuit of happiness, there was still this institution of slavery. In fact, yes?
I learned yesterday in my American Gov class that they had to keep slavery in order to be able to pass the new document of government, because otherwise it would never have gone through the 13 states.
Probably, that may be true, practically speaking. Okay. But that still is a shortfall in the system. It's a shortfall in people's thinking, in reasoning, because just because you're trying to pass this new constitution doesn't mean that you'd be willing to allow an evil to persist. Okay? So it shows the problems with even the idea of natural rights coming from God, that everyone doesn't always recognize these. Okay? And our Constitution is an example of that. What does anyone remember what the Constitution says about black people?
3/5 of a person.
What does the Constitution say itself? Do you remember, Noah?
3/5 of a person.
3/5 of a person. Okay, that's what the Constitution said. So, and slavery, the lack of liberty, was embedded right into our Constitution. Yes.
Once again, they didn't mean it like they all knew slavery was wrong, but they said that slavery was 3/5 of a person because the southern states would have had more power than the northern states because 3/4, more than half the population of southern states were slaves.
Uh-huh. Well, there
So
may have
that they
been
wouldn't
political
come as a
reasons for doing that, but the fact is that this was embedded in our Constitution.
Well, they knew it was
Yeah.
wrong though, so it's not like they were
Well,
completely
well,
blowing off.
when you say they knew it was wrong, okay, it's not everyone knew it was wrong. The slave owners didn't think this was wrong in the South. Okay? That's why they were demanding this in order to enter the Union, saying, well, we're not going to enter this Union if we're not going to be able to own our slaves. So while you say, they recognized it was wrong, well, yeah, maybe a few people, but Thomas Jefferson vacillated on this, okay? He predicted that this would be a problem in our country, and yet he owned slaves himself. So if he really believed that this was wrong, he wouldn't have owned slaves. This is a problem with just relying on the notion of well, we're going to recognize natural rights. Well, the problem is that not everyone recognizes these rights in a practical manner. Now that's one example, okay, where we don't have that. Another would be under atheistic communism. Atheistic communism is a government still in force in a number of countries in the world, although communism has fallen in most countries. But under atheistic communism, you do not have a right to own private property. That's the whole idea of communism. It's communal ownership. The state owns everything. The individual owns nothing, properly speaking. And we're going to see why that goes against human nature. Another thing about atheistic communism, and I preface it with atheistic, is that what do you not have the freedom to do under atheistic communism as it was formulated? Atheism means atheistic, against God, theos, God, okay? You had no freedom of worship. For years, under communism, now it's eased up a little bit, but you had not the freedom to worship God. Okay? I have an aunt. She grew up in Lithuania under communism, and if you even had a crucifix or any religious object on the desk that she worked, she could be dragged in before the police and questioned, and no, you did not have the freedom to worship. If they knew you were going to church, then you may lose your job, you may lose your livelihood. Okay? So governments have not recognized these fundamental rights, and why is that? Okay? Why was it that people in our country who founded it, everyone wasn't on board with the fact that all human beings, regardless of the color of their skin, had certain fundamental rights, like the right to life, the right to liberty. Okay? Why was it that people didn't recognize this? Well, part of the problem is the fall. Okay? We have a fall in human nature. Our reason has been darkened, and we don't all see things the way we should. Okay? We get into sinful patterns, and we even a culture can fall into a pattern of behavior like tolerating an evil. Okay? The evil of slavery was tolerated for many years. We fought a war to end slavery. Okay? Hundreds of thousands of people died because of that war. So, and now, for example, we mentioned another great evil that is tolerated under so-called freedom: abortion. Abortion is the killing of unborn children. We have an American Holocaust that's been going on for 41 years now. It'll be 41 years next week. And we have people that claim that there's a right to kill other people as long as they're in the womb. It's okay to do that. Well, that shows the problems with our ability to think and reason properly. Okay? Now, I'm going to talk today about an important concept, and it's this: the natural law. Okay? Oops. Let's do it. Natural law. And to introduce this topic, I'm going to quote St. Paul. Okay? This is what St. Paul says in 2 Romans 2, okay, 14 to 15. St. Paul talks about the natural law. This is what he says. Okay? When the Gentiles means all the non-Jews, okay, who do not have the law of Moses, because the Gentiles didn't have the law of Moses, only the Jews had the law of Moses, the Ten Commandments, okay? When the Gentiles who do not have the law do by nature what the law prescribes, okay? In other words, they follow the Ten Commandments, okay? They are a law to themselves. They show the work of the law written in their hearts. Their conscience bears witness to them, even when conflicting thoughts accuse or defend them. So what is St. Paul saying there? He says even when the Gentiles, they didn't get the Ten Commandments like the Jews did, the Hebrews, okay? Moses came down with the Ten Commandments. Okay? St. Paul is saying to us in 2 Romans that the Gentiles, even though they didn't have the law of Moses, they followed the law in their hearts, because the law of God is written in their hearts. Okay? So, the law of God, okay, written in the heart. Okay? And what does this mean? Okay? What does it mean that the law of God is written in our hearts? This is God revealing to us this truth with St. Paul. Okay? The natural law, the law of God written in our hearts. Okay? Written in the heart. Anyone take a guess? Have an opinion what St. Paul means here? When even though the Gentiles didn't have the Ten Commandments, they were still able to follow the Ten Commandments, basically. Why? Because it's written in our hearts. What does that mean? What does that mean that it's written in our hearts? Noah, I can tell you're thinking, what?
Come on, bud.
It means that it's our nature.
It's our nature by reason of what? You're on the right track, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. But what do we have that allows us to know the law of God in our hearts? What are we endowed with in our human nature?
Reason.
Corey? What? We have an intellect. That's it. Okay. We have an intellect.
Bye, Emma.
I knew it.
You didn't say bye to
Right
me.
here.
Bye, Emma.
She
never said bye to me. I said bye to
Okay, we have. The natural law written in our hearts, the law of God written in our hearts, means that we have the ability, okay, through our God-given reasoning abilities, to know the truth. Okay? The natural law means, through our reason, okay, through our reason, okay, we can know the truth. Okay? About God. Okay? About God and the moral law. Okay? That is basic moral precepts. Okay? Basic moral precepts. You go to any culture throughout history, And everyone knows that murder is wrong. We know this from our reason. Okay? We know to kill another person is wrong. Just using our reason, we know this. We don't need the fifth commandment to tell us that murder is evil. Okay? We know this. Okay? We know it. What are you saying?
Oh, no.
I was asking him a question.
Okay, well, you don't ask questions, you pay attention to me. If you have a question, ask me.
Like, it was a question like that I knew he would know, though. Like, it was about a different country.
Yeah, but
All right, my bad, Father.
we don't talk in class, okay? You pay attention to me.
He didn't say G. He didn't say G.
You just say.
You would probably kick me out once I said G. I'm pretty sure.
Now, we know from using our reason that murder is wrong. Okay? Every culture, every society in the history of the world has recognized this, has had laws prohibiting murder. Okay? The same thing with stealing. Okay? We know that theft is wrong. To take someone else's property is wrong. Even though people didn't have the Ten Commandments, they knew this. With our reasoning ability, we know that stealing is wrong. We should know that things like adultery is wrong. Okay? I mean, to have relations with someone else's spouse, we know this is not right. Okay? This is a violation of the human person and the rights of another person. Okay? We know that lying is wrong.
Can you
Yes.
explain adultery a little bit more? I never got that one.
Damn, he's coming down.
I never understood really adultery.
What?
What it meant.
Hey, listen, fellas, I'm going to take a point from class today, okay? You get a point off.
Okay.
The whole grade, okay? The whole grade, your final grade, okay? I don't want talking in class. What is it that you guys don't get? What is it that you don't understand?
What?
Thomas, okay? What is it that you don't understand? I fail to see what your problem is, okay? You keep talking in class, okay? You know, I'll have you exit the class. Okay? So, we're not talking about adultery today, okay? You can go to the internet and look up what adultery is.
Well, I mean, I want to get like your understanding.
Go to the internet.
Well, we're not on that topic today.
Before we get on it.
I'm making a point here that that by use of our reasoning abilities, okay, by use of our reasoning abilities, we can know basic right and wrong. We can know that murder and stealing and lying is wrong. God gives us a reason to know this. That's the natural law. Okay? It's written in our hearts by our reasoning abilities. Okay. This is why God gives us a reason to know this. Okay. So every society is bound by the natural law. That's why St. Paul wrote his words there, that the Gentiles are responsible before God, even though they didn't have the law of Moses. It was written in their hearts, and so when they did wrong, they're going to be punished for it. If they commit murder and theft and robbery and a whole list of things, he goes on to say. No, because the law is written in our hearts. We are accountable before God. Okay? So this is what the natural law is. Through our reason, we can know the truth about God and the moral law, basic moral precepts. Now the natural law, in addition, okay, the natural law is immutable. Okay? Immutable means it doesn't change. Okay? Unchangeable. Okay? Why is the natural law immutable? It doesn't change. From one day to the next. Okay. Murder is okay one day, but it isn't the next, or it isn't one day and one day it is. Why?
Because it's God's law.
Well, because it's God's law, and there's another reason. It's immutable because it's God's law. Yes. Okay. It's God's law. Okay. God's law doesn't change. Okay. And there's another reason, because human nature does not change. Okay? Our human nature doesn't change. It's the same today as it was back at the time Adam and Eve were created. We have the same nature. The same law of God applies no matter what culture you're in, no matter what time you live in, what age you live in. Okay? So, the natural law is immutable, okay? Unchangeable, okay? And the natural law is eternal. Okay? It's eternal because God is eternal. Okay? It goes on forever. Even though we have the ability to know basic right and wrong, okay, there are problems with the natural law. And the problems stem from the fact that the problems are with us. It's basically because we have a fallen human nature. And our intellects are darkened. Okay? We don't see as clearly as we should. We need God's help. Okay? So, we need God's light. Okay? And He gives us this through the Ten Commandments, okay? The Ten Commandments and the teaching of Jesus, okay? Jesus Christ, okay? His teaching, okay? So whatever's lacking in the natural law, okay, maybe we can't see as clearly as we should, God gives us His law. Okay? God, this is why Jesus Christ came, so we can know the truth. The truth will set you free, so you can live a good life, so you can live a holy life, so you can live a life of justice, okay? And we can attain justice. Okay? So, the fact that we have a fallen human nature, our intellects are darkened. Okay? An example, okay? Our Constitution allows slavery. It permitted slavery. Okay? Fine, may have been reasons for this, but the fact is that you had a large number of people who didn't think that people with a different colored skin had the same rights as they did. They had the same liberties. Okay? They didn't have liberty because their skin was dark. Okay? That's an injustice, right? Everyone agrees with that. Well, people didn't see that back then. Okay? So, now, we have so the natural law, it gives us or provides for natural rights. Okay? like the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, okay? Etc. Okay? But even here, we're limited. Okay? We the natural rights. What natural rights? Okay. Natural rights are a foundation. Okay. But are limited. Okay, in their application. Okay. We can think about the right to freedom of speech. Okay. That's an example. Okay. We have freedom of speech. You see how rights are limited? Freedom of speech or expression, okay, as it's known by, expression, is not absolute. Okay. Okay. It has limitations. Okay. What are some limitations on freedom of expression? Even our laws recognize limits to freedom of expression. Can we say anything, anytime, anywhere that we want? Okay. No, Michael, why? Why? For example, give an example. In
like what are you trying to say? Like what you can't say?
yeah, what you
You
can't
just
say.
can't make fun of people. You can't even walk to
It's
them.
a lot of
Make fun of people, or maybe, or what? Give it. Okay, you can't ridicule someone. Okay, that's not a proper use of our freedom. Okay, that's limited. Okay, can we tell lies about someone?
Sure. Or about something.
a lot of people do.
Well, we don't have a right. While we have a right, freedom of expression is a right. Okay. Okay. A right. Okay. That's what we're talking about. Natural rights. Okay. It's not unlimited. Okay. There are limitations to this. Okay. We can't libel. Okay. Okay. You can't libel someone. You can't spread false information publicly about someone. You can be sued for that. Okay. You can't do that. Okay. That's wrong. Okay. You can't stand up in a crowded theater and yell fire so everyone flees and people get hurt, because you could be sued for that too. You could be arrested for that. Okay. That would be causing mayhem. Causing maybe people to get injured. Okay. We don't have absolute rights for freedom of expression. There are limits to it. And freedom of expression doesn't allow us another limitation. Okay. Pornography. There's no right to spread pornography. Our founding fathers would have cringed at the thought of the First Amendment, freedom of expression, meaning, oh, you can spread pornography around society. This isn't evil. There's no right to do wrong. Okay, you can't be spreading pornography. I bought a Nook.
Where's this going?
Okay. I bought a Nook that you can get books on. Okay, and you get it through the internet. I didn't get a filter on there. Okay, I turned it on, and these images came up. I was just, my gosh, there's no right. There's no right for someone to put this out there that is offensive to other people and offensive to the human person. Okay? So there are limitations to even these so-called natural rights. There's a freedom to own property. Okay? We have a right, you could say, to own property, a natural right under the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson said we have a God-given right to own property. Well, that doesn't mean we have a right to any and all property. Okay, we don't have a right to say store anthrax in our homes. Okay, because that's a dangerous substance that could kill people. Okay, you can't stockpile something like anthrax in your home because this would be a danger to other people. So there are limitations to our right to own private property. Okay, there are limits to this. It's not unlimited. Okay, there's a right to have custody over one's body. Okay, it's my body, and people can violate my body, but there's no right under the law of our states to inject drugs into your body. Because the authorities and governments say, well, this is bad for us. Some people may not realize it's bad for them, but it is. So we have drug laws that say you can't inject anything into your body that you want. Okay? There actually are this area is changing a little bit right now because if you've read, some states are allowing marijuana, saying that this isn't really all that bad. Okay, Colorado now you can buy marijuana and use marijuana. Okay, but every state law recognizes things like heroin and other hard drugs as being harmful to the individual. So even though we have a right over our own bodies, that doesn't mean that we can inject drugs into them. Okay? Even though a woman has a right over her body, doesn't mean she can kill a person within her body that's growing in the womb. Okay? Now this is the abortion debate. Yes.
I always thought it was funny how like if someone was to like accidentally hit like a pregnant woman and like in a car accident, let's say, and the mom dies and the baby dies, they get convicted for like a double homicide or something like that, but they can abort the baby if they want to.
Yes, well that's a contradiction. That is a contradiction.
That's just funny.
A contradiction in our laws.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, the law is saying, okay, well this is, you killed two people, but then the law is saying, well, but if the mother wants to abort her child, well then she can do this. Then it's not a person. What makes it a person? Well, the mother's choice. Well, no, that's the mother recognizing the humanity of the child or not doesn't change reality. Okay, objective reality is that there's a child growing in the womb. Okay, which brings me to just another thing that was brought up the other day when we mentioned. I was talking about how the states in the early years of our country, it was such a culturally accepted practice for everyone to go to church, and if you didn't go to church on Sunday, you were considered basically a criminal. Even some people, in some instances, were thrown in jail. We thought, well, that's just something that's sounds outlandish today, but if we realize the thinking of people at the time that everyone did this and you were expected to do it, there was an expectation of this, and there's an order to the commandments. Because I started thinking about this after Seth and I had that exchange. Is this reasonable? Would we do this? No, but why would people do this in society? Why would some local communities say, well, if you're not going to church, we're going to throw you in jail? Well, there's an order to the commandments of importance. The first commandment is the most important. You worship only the one God. Don't worship many gods, okay? And our founders would not have tolerated, say, people worshiping many gods, okay? They would have said, no, there's one God. We would have been on board with that thought, okay? Keep God's day holy, okay? Keep holy the Sabbath, okay? We arrest people for stealing, okay? For lying, perjury in court, okay? And I think probably in the minds of some of these people in the early years of our country, okay? Well, if stealing is a punishable offense by jail and lying is, well, not going to church is too. So you're not going to go to church, we'll throw you in jail, and maybe you learn to go to church. Okay? They didn't care which church you went to as long as you went to church. That's another debatable issue, but that was just a culturally, you could say, accepted practice back in the early years of our country. They expected everyone to go to church on Sunday. Okay? The fact is that God expects people to go to church on Sunday. That's why it's the third commandment. It's not the third suggestion. Okay, so God commands, and He obligates us to worship Him. And the importance of that commandment is seen from the fact that it's third, listed in the commandments. They go in order of importance. Okay, so that's an important commandment to worship God on Sundays, and well, we're obligated to do that. Okay, but back to the natural law. Okay? So we have within our hearts, you could say, written in our hearts, the ability to know God and to know basic right and wrong. Why does St. Paul say we have, and the natural law says, we have the ability to know God? I know those who were in my class last term, we talked about this. How can we come to know God by use of our reasoning abilities? Is it possible to do that? How can we come to know that there is a God by use of our reasoning abilities? Those in my class last term, you should know this, okay? John Setter, I know you know this. What's one of the ways that we can come to know God, John? How can we come to know that there is a God by looking around and seeing what, for example? For example, okay, if you went out at the stars at night and saw the universe, okay, any idea? Do you remember the set?
Could you, by just seeing the creation, what He's all created, the nature, the animals, the stars, God?
Creation proclaims the glory of God, okay? The ancient Greek philosophers, remember? Okay? The ancient philosophers, they looked around and saw order in the universe. The universe is ordered. It takes a mind to order the universe. It's unreasonable to think that everything came into being and has been ordered by accident. That's the atheistic materialists who say, oh, the Big Bang took place and everything just kind of fell into place. Everything's in order by chance, by accident. That's unreasonable. Okay? It's more reasonable to think that someone, a mind, God, put things in order. And the ancient Greek philosophers, they called God nous, mind, the mind that placed things in order. So the universe is ordered, the stars, the solar system is ordered. Okay, that's why we can look at the stars and they're predictable, coming up, the seasons. Okay, someone placed an order in creation. That order was placed by a mind, a divine mind, and that is God. That's what the natural law means. We can come to know that there is a God, okay, who places things in order. Another argument how we can know God exists that Aristotle used was motion. Okay? Things don't move on their own. A movement requires a mover. And there must be a first mover. That first mover is God. He started things in motion. He's the unmoved mover. Okay?